women's sport. It's all male-dominated clothing if you're training. I always found it hard to find the right size when I was training. It's either large boys or small men's, and you're not in, as a woman playing football, it's hard to find. So we started to look at training work and what sat in them, where the women's, sport was, what colours, what's different to the male dominated kit wear. Basically, we started to do that. And I got some sales, which to me was like, wow. I didn't think I was going to get anything. I literally put it out there and thought, I'm probably going to have to shut it down because I don't think anything's going to happen. But it did. I got some sales, and as soon as I started to get some sales, I started to contact some players who were still playing, some clubs who had been at in the past, and said, I've got some sponsorship money here now. Do you want some? Because I knew how hard it was. The other side of it, going to other people, going to businesses, can you sponsor me? And they're like, sorry, we've already sponsored the boys under 12 down the road. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put 20% of all my profits back into the grassroots game. That's going to put about 40% now, just in case. So that's how it started, and that's where we are in that section.
Okay. And then in terms of your recent news coverage.
So that's been a bit of a whirlwind. So during lockdown again, once I'd established kicks and balls, a player I used to play with at Liverpool Feds, which is the team that I coach at now, got in contact with me and was like, I've started to put some period products in the changing rooms of the girls' team, because as we know, the facilities of grassroots football, there isn't any. There's a toilet at best. So I've started to just put some in there, and we're getting amazing feedback from the parents. And I was like, oh, okay. So we'll come to you. Can we put a pack together and put it through kicks and balls? And I was like, yes, definitely. Because I know from playing, definitely being a goalkeeper, when you're in that menstrual cycle, your coordination's gone. You can't catch a ball, let alone kick a ball. You're tired all the time, and there's no facilities there. If you're going to play away at Burnley, say, or Middlesbrough, wherever you're going, especially when I was playing, you're lucky if you got a changing room. I'd been to places where there was a urinal, and that was it. We changed in the car park. So it was a real, it stuck with me a lot. I was like, yeah, let's do something where we take this stigma away. They can carry it into the changing rooms, the club knows it's there, and the girls can just dip in and use it if they want to. So we thought, okay, just in case, and we came up with this bag, period products in there, but also products like nutrition bars, vegan nutrition bars, pain patches, which is a thing that I didn't know existed until I started to research. So most people will just take paracetamol for pain. We went for a whole different thing. You can put this plaster on while you're playing football. It's eucalyptus and it freezes the pain. You go straight on the pitch, you can play in it for 80 minutes. That's revolutionised my football straight away. And then all of a sudden, Liverpool Echo got in touch and was like, let's do an interview. Then the BBC got in touch and was like, let's do an interview. And then BBC Sport got in touch and I was like, oh my God, I can't do it. I said to them, I sound too scouts. People were like, what are you talking about? I sound like a dolphin. They were just like, what? I was like, and I was like, dead nervous of doing it. You sound fine, it's fine. So we had an interview with them, and then London Sport got in contact, and that was last week's interview. I met a lovely, lovely lady who does the women's sports review of the Saturday. And she interviewed me from London, and she was just like, this is brilliant. And when you have an idea, two people have an idea, and you think, yeah, it's good, but we think it's good. But when someone else starts to say, no, that's good, that makes an impact, then you go, okay, yeah, I see. If they're seeing it the same way I do, then I can only start to grow, I think.
Yeah. This one's going to throw you off a little bit because it's not on here. But what's your favourite thing about being a coach?
The girls probably just like the seeing them develop. It's all about them stepping up, and you should coach some of the girls from this big, and then as we were talking about before, some of the girls from Feds like Paige Williams went on to play for Everton, Birmingham, you know, all of the England up until under 21s. When you see a kid from age 5 and next minute they're playing in an England shirt, that's all it's about. And like, there's a couple of the girls there who are coach now, and every week you see them, and like, they're progressing more and more. And they're doing stuff that, when they're implementing what you're doing in the game, you've won then, haven't you? When you say, okay, maybe you should, you know, lay back, turn off, play a through ball, and you do that exact combination, and a goal comes out of it, then that's all that matters. And it's just seeing them smile. You know? We've had some good wins, haven't we?
Amazing. Right, okay, so we'll move on now. So next we've got Rob, who is the co-founder of She's Got Skills, and then the other co-founder is at the back, and that's me. And he's also the head coach of Kenningwell Football Club for women. So can you tell us a bit about both at first?
Yeah, sure. So evening everyone. Yeah, my name's Robert, co-founder with B of She's Got Skills. So we, back in the summer of 2019, we'd actually been brought in by a mutual friend of ours to work on a different football-related project, whereby we'd be teaching English to groups of refugees and asylum seekers in London, using football as the medium. So there'd be a classroom session in the morning. I've been brought in to deliver the football element because I'm also a level 2 qualified coach. I work for Chelsea, so don't hold that against me, please. I'm not a Chelsea fan. But yeah, so we've been brought in to kind of consult and work on that project. It fell through for whatever reason, so B and I were just kind of left sitting there with, you know, the energy to work on a project together. But the original idea that we've been brought in to work on had been kind of, you know, kiboshed really. So, you know, it was the end of the summer. We just watched loads of the Women's World Cup on the telly, and we saw the appetite that there was. You know, the viewing figures have been really high. There was just quite a lot of vibe and attention around it. So we definitely wanted to do something that was focused on women's football. That just kind of, you know, led to us having a couple of meetings and brainstorming sessions. We're both quite old and we've worked in a few different places. Our network of contacts is quite extensive. So what we wanted to do was, first of all, get more women playing football. I mean, you know, you look at grassroots football, you look at five-a-side provisions and stuff like that. You know, it's the vast majority of that is catered towards men. You might get the odd mixed league, but we didn't really see too much going on that was, you know, primarily or purely for women. So we settled on the idea of just kind of digging into our network, trying to go into a few quite large corporate companies and just, you know, putting on a couple of five-a-side tournaments to get the ball rolling. So, you know, for the first tournament, which was in September 2019, the teams that we had involved were Amazon, Facebook, Mixcloud, and who else?
Facebook, Mixcloud,
Universal Music Group. And that was purely, you know, based on people that we knew that worked at these companies. So we go into them and say, look, do you have a women's football team, first of all? If you don't, you know, do you reckon that there are enough of you and your colleagues that could, you know, put a team together and play? And I think part of the reason why we wanted to get corporate teams in was to, in effect, leverage the brand and the logo and make it look like we were bigger than we were, so that we could attract a larger audience. So first tournament went swimmingly. We put a bit of money towards it, and you know, a few bells and whistles. After party, you know, we had some nice sort of prizes from Nike. We had Anne-Marie Batson come in to host the kind of the awards and the prize giving at the end, and just, you know, let the teams network and mingle afterwards. And from there, that's kind of where the idea was born. Really.
And what was it like going from 9 till 5 to coaching full time at Chelsea?
Yeah, it was a decision that was kind of a long time coming, really. You know, I'd finished university in Sheffield, gone back to London, just kind of fallen into various sales jobs that I could do. You know, I didn't love sales, but it's just, you know, something that some people can, you know, can fall into and find easy to do for a few years. But eventually I just kind of started to feel like I was, you know, a line on a spreadsheet. I didn't feel like I was contributing. I didn't really feel recognised or valued or anything like that. So I took some time off, reevaluated what I wanted to do, started doing my badges to get into coaching, and it was quite fortunate because one of my best friend's younger brothers were on Chelsea's books at the time, so I had an introduction via their dad. Got the job, didn't look back, still there a couple of years later. You know, so I had to do it. Sales was killing me.
Yeah, I think it kills most people.
Yeah.
And then, what kinds of shifts have you seen in women's football?
At the grassroots level, quite a lot. I mean, particularly in London, where there's always a lot going on, there are a couple of really, really good and strong initiatives, platforms, leagues, groups that are so inclusive, and they really do a great job in attracting women into football. You know, always like name dropping things like the Super 5 League, which is run by Shazza, who we know pretty well. It's huge. You know, there's probably 50 to 60 teams that play most nights of the week. He's opening up new venues in different parts of London. He's doing sort of younger age groups now as well. There's individual teams within that, like Gold Diggers, who you see their content, you know, the amount of women that they get along to training, you know, the videos that they produce that then attract more women into the game and stuff like that. It's brilliant at a grassroots level. There's a lot happening. It's a really good sort of vibe, and loads and loads of women are getting into the game regardless of their age. Higher up, you see, well, going right to the top end, you know, when we've been to watch the Lionesses, you start to see like all the big sponsors getting involved, because they see that the Lionesses can fill Wembley or fill any stadium, so that they know that there's a bit of traction there, so they're starting to throw a bit of money at it. But as we were saying just before we started, B and I had a meeting with West Ham Women, like quite early on, and we were working on, you know, a side thing for one of our tournaments. But the MD of West Ham Women was asking us if we had any links to sponsors. So even though it's West Ham Women, the money's not necessarily there just if you're the women's version of the men's team, you know. So they've still got to work really hard to get the money into the game for them. So some teams I think are struggling. Rachel, as you were saying, you know, your Man Cities and your Chelseas and your Arsenals, they already have the profile, so a lot of the money is probably getting funneled towards them, and the other teams are perhaps struggling a bit, but it's definitely coming. You know,
and then off the back of that, how do you think like the power of networking is so important for anybody just to get themselves out there?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, as I say, with us, when we started doing the corporate tournaments, part of it was to do with people that we knew, but then other times we just, you know, go steaming into companies, you know, use LinkedIn, you know, ask, find women that are working in, you know, marketing or finance or, you know, whatever it might be. Just ask the question: have you got a women's football team? If not, why not? And what are you going to do about it? Yeah, that's it really.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think just like the question to end things, what's like any kind of advice that any of you would say for a young female wanting to get into the football industry that can be across like any role? What would you advise?
Well, I kind of like what Robert just said, which is to ask, because I think obviously with social media, it's just revolutionised how easily you can contact people. Definitely would always say, like, what is the worst that can happen? I've been teaching 20 years, so what we would say 20 years ago to kind of our students looking for jobs is just radically changed. You know, it was always like, I mean, you still can be formal, you know, you can still contact people and write to people wherever that may be. but there's just so many more channels to meet people and to connect with people.